legislative workshop for 2026. I hope you find it interesting, entertaining. A couple things I would like to do is make some introductions if I can find the people on here. Um, Many of you probably know Virginia Crespo, who is our legislative aide. She was just talking about clearing driveways, and she's always got some good news for us and some sometimes interesting bad news, but you'll hear from her later on. Do we have Tilly on here yet? I don't see her. Our wonderful Vice President, Tilly Barkley, she will be joining us later, I hope, and I'll try to reintroduce her then. Also, our President-elect, Alice, uh, now her last name just escaped me. She's from Dorchester
Mitchell.
County. She is also supposed to join Mitchell. Thank you. And when she comes on, I will try to go back to her as well. Um,
Is on.
Tom Slater, our legislative chairperson. Tom, I think I saw you somewhere, maybe.
Yes, I'm
Well, he'll
here.
be joining us as well.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Good, good. Well, Tom, this is Tom, our legislative chair, and I believe you'll be hearing from him a little bit later as well. Uh, and I would like to make a couple of requests of everybody. Number one, we're going to be recording this workshop. So if you would please stay muted unless you want to ask or answer a question, that would be very helpful. Questions can be asked either in the chat room or they can be asked after the presentation. The usual, we'll be welcoming all the presenters. I'll tell you a little bit about the ones I know when they are on the agenda. And I think that's about it for right now. Question before we begin? Okay, great.
Did we get the agenda?
First thing on the, excuse me?
Did we get an agenda?
There
Was
is,
it emailed to us?
no, I haven't agenda. No, because it was pretty fluid and things changed on it, and it would have been a bit of a mess if we had sent it out and then it wasn't what it said it was going to be.
Oh,
So
sure. No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to find it if I had it.
now I'll tell you what we're doing, I hope. The first thing we were supposed to have were greetings from Senator Benson, but I understand she is not available. So we will not be having greetings from Senator Benson. For those of you that know who she is, you know she's been an educator. She was an educator for 40 some years. She taught in Prince George's County. She held a number of positions, and she has always been an activist and felt that education was the key to success for everyone. So I'm really terribly sorry she's not here to bring greetings. She's a Spitfire too. If you know her, you know that. But she tells it like it is. Do we have Tanya Zimmerman on yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. All right. So I do have a little bit of bio information on Tanya. She started with the Department of Legislative Services as a budget analyst in 2007. In her time as a budget analyst, she primarily focused on human services and energy-related agencies. In 2021, she was promoted to operating budget manager and continues as the budget analyst for the Department of Human Services Family Investment Administration. So Tanya, I want to thank you for joining us today and welcome you to our legislative workshop and turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you. I'll share my screen with the document that I'll be presenting from. For your awareness, this is part of a larger document presentation that the Department of Legislative Services presented yesterday to the Senate Budget and Taxation and Appropriations Committees, the fiscal briefing. You can find the full document on the Maryland General Assembly website. So this is an overview of the fiscal 2027 budget that I'll be presenting about, including some specific items related to the education funding. I won't be covering everything in this particular document, but as I said, the full document is available on the Maryland General Assembly website. So just looking at the overall kind of change in the budget. The overall budget increases by about $505 million or 0.7%. This is from a combination of changes. So the general funds decreased by about $154 million. However, quite really most of that decrease is related to proposed deficiency appropriations, which provide kind of additional money in the current year to pay for costs that were actually incurred in fiscal 2025. And so if you exclude those, then the budget actually increases, the general funds increase by about $168 million. Federal funds decreased by about $315 million, and that's really related to Medicaid reimbursement costs. Special funds increase by about $974 million. This growth is driven by a couple of special funds. The largest growth of about $357 million is related to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future spending on education. And then the remainder of the increase, or the next kind of biggest pieces of those increases, relate to spending on transportation, as well as the paid leave program that will begin in fiscal 2027. The governor's plan leaves a general fund balance of about $108 million. Looking at kind of this next page, this looks at how the governor's legislative proposals lead to that $108 million balance. So before these actions, most of which that are listed here are included in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. The balance would have been $1.4 billion, but we end up with a $100 million balance. So how does that happen? So there are a few revenue changes. The two of these totaling about $130 million relates to some provisions that are in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was enacted at the federal level this summer that impact corporate income taxes. The state can decouple either kind of in full or in part from that. And the governor has proposed decoupling from a couple provisions in that, which would bring additional revenue compared to if we state aligned with those changes. Other significant changes have to do with funding certain environmental and land and open space programs with capital funds, freeing up revenue to go to the general fund. There's about $586 million of transfers to the general fund. The largest of these has to do with the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which generally supports renewable and clean energy activities. It has a significant balance, and a portion of that is being used to go to the general fund to help the general fund balance. Another significant transfer is the Fiscal Responsibility Fund. These funds would otherwise be used for capital purposes, but are being proposed to be transferred to the general fund. There's about $593 million of reductions in the budget that are contingent on particular provisions in the BRFA, making changes to mandates, expanding the use of special funds, and making other changes that would lead to savings in the budget. This highlights just a few of them, kind of the largest number. The full list is provided in the full document that I mentioned that is on the General Assembly website. of the 593 million, about 450 million of it is related to a required appropriation to the rainy day fund. These appropriations are required when there is a general fund surplus at the close of the prior year. And so this just relieves the state of making that appropriation. The next largest reduces totaling about $39 million, reduces the state share of the teacher retirement, librarian retirement, and community college retirement. It's about 50% of the increased costs between 2026 and 2027. That would have been the state's responsibility. It doesn't impact the benefits. It just changes kind of who pays for the costs. There are a few other changes that impact local governments, including about $21 million related to capping the growth in the formula that supports community colleges at 3%. And some others that might be of interest relate to, so across the state budget, there are a number of providers, like health providers or foster care providers, or providers of non-public placement services that typically receive or often receive rate increases in the budget. This year's budget provides no rate increases for those providers, and the provisions, in fact, would prohibit provider rate increases for providers of non-public placements as well as foster care rates, and that reduces general fund spending. Turning to kind of the outlook for the future. So what this chart is looking at is the structural budget outlook. So you have kind of two outlooks, one which is the kind of cash balance. Do you have enough cash to pay for all the costs? And one is the structural outlook, which looks at kind of ongoing revenue versus ongoing spending. In this case, when you see negative numbers, that indicates that the ongoing spending is higher than the ongoing revenue, and likely needs action in the future to address that kind of disparity. So as you can see in the orange bars, this presents the structural budget outlook based on the governor's plan, and the shortfall is relatively small in fiscal 2027 after the actions that were taken that are proposed in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act and other changes in the budget of just under 400 million. But can see that it significantly grows beginning in fiscal 2028 and continues to worsen throughout the forecast period to over $4 billion by fiscal 2031. There are a number of contributors to that, including some changes in spending related to some human services programs that were impacted by the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. But another significant factor is costs related to the implementation of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, and I'll show why that is in just a little bit. So I'm just going to skip ahead through a few of these slides. So there are a few kind of areas of additional enhancements that are included in the budget, or additional costs that were unexpected. Some relate to employee pay scales, as well as some emergency facility maintenance at some public safety facilities. One area of cost increases has been the cost of the assessments for MCAP. That's about $29 million higher than was previously expected. A number of the rest of the enhancements are provide some economic development or support for various businesses renovating or relocating to Maryland, as well as some additional assistance to for like local law enforcement. Looking at the K-12 education and funding in particular, overall that increases by $359 million or 3.7%. That includes about $228 million of discretionary funds to hold schools covered by the community eligibility provision harmless from declines in the free and reduced price meal count. That count is used for to determine funding under the compensatory education formula, and that also impacts a few other areas of aid to local school systems. The accounts, as I'll show later, significantly declined this year due to a change in how those counts are made, particularly for community eligibility provision schools, and this increase largely holds those school districts harmless. There was overall decreases in enrollment, which I'll also show in just a minute, which dampened some of the growth in education aid that might have otherwise been expected. However, all school systems except for Garrett County do receive an increase in direct aid. A few other areas of interest in the budget. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act that I mentioned that was enacted this summer at the federal level has led to some cost increases in the budget. The fiscal 2026 and 2027 budgets include about $56 million to implement those changes. One of the changes it made requires the state to cover a higher share of the administrative costs for the supplemental nutrition assistance, previously or more commonly known as food stamps, and also costs related to changes in Medicaid requirements. I mention this because this is the kind of first impact of these changes. The out years will have some significant cost increases, particularly as it relates to SNAP, but there will probably be some savings to the Medicaid program due to the changes. But on the whole, the net impact of that is expected to increase state costs over the long term, which does impact the state's outlook. There is growth across the state's public higher education institutions, totaling about $71 million. About $42 million of this is to assist higher education institutions, both the public as well as as well as another institution, to transition some of their research activities to focus on energy related activities. Some of the kind of issues that we're looking at or the legislature is likely to deal with during or be facing this session is the long-term sustainability of the budget. As I showed earlier, while the short term, there's not a significant problem in terms of the structural outlook that does grow substantially beginning in fiscal 2028. And so actions are likely needed to address that gap. There continues to be federal policy uncertainty and uncertainty related to the impact of federal employment changes and changes to funding that the state receives from the federal government and how that might impact the Maryland economy and the budget. There are a couple areas of risk in the budget, particularly related to behavioral health spending that also are things that may need to be addressed or looked at. So turning to some education-specific aspects of the budget, this looks at the cost of the implementation of the Blueprint program through 2031, as well as how those are being paid for. And this impacts significantly the chart that I showed earlier about the structural budget outlook. So the blue bars represent the ongoing revenue that supports the Blueprint Fund. The green bars that appear in some years are fund balance from earlier years when there was kind of more revenue coming in than was needed to pay for the cost. As you can see, through fiscal 2027, the combination of the ongoing revenue plus that fund balance means no other funding is needed to provide to support the implementation costs. Beginning in fiscal 2028, other funds are needed. It's presumed that these will be general funds to support those costs as the ongoing revenues kind of remain at a level, kind of a similar level across the period. But there's only about $131 million of balance remaining. So the general fund expected need is about just under $1.7 billion in fiscal 2028, but grows to about $3.4 billion by fiscal 2031. Looking at some of the state aid related to education, as you can see on the whole, it increases by about $359 million, excluding kind of retirement payments. It would be about $323 million. The foundation program, which is the largest program, increases by about $135 million. And the special education formula increases by about $101 million. There continues to be growth in this population, as well as increases in the funding per student. However, there are areas of decrease, including the compensatory aid program, despite the discretionary funding to assist those jurisdictions. It still does result in a net decrease. And the English language learners grant also decreases due to the enrollment counts, which I'll show momentarily. This non-public placement program decreases by about $24 million. This is mostly related to a provision that was in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2025, so from last session, that over a 2-year period shifted some of the costs from the state to the local governments. Full day pre-kindergarten funding continues to increase with an increase of about $85 million in fiscal 2027. So this particular chart is looking at two of the, I'm going to try and make it, trying to balance here, being able for people to be able to see as well as to be able to see the total. So these first 4 columns over here are the full-time equivalent student count. So there's just kind of a count of students in each school system. The bars on the columns on the right are the English language learners. As you can see in these difference columns over here, the overall count of full-time enrollment decreased by 7,400 between this year and the prior year, about 0.9%. The decrease occurred in nearly every jurisdiction. The English language learner enrollment count also decreased in nearly every jurisdiction, a total decrease of about 4,300 students, just over that, about 3.6%. And both of these are factors in the funding that goes to education, for education to the local governments. So this particular chart looks at some changes that were made or are being proposed to state aid, focusing on the schools funding. There are kind of 2 main changes. The one increases the funding by about $228 million, as I mentioned, based on how they're proposing to change the count for free and reduced price meal enrollment for the community eligibility provision schools. And the second relieves a mandate that requires $2 million of funding to be used for driver education in schools. This last, I guess this is the second to last chart I have. This is looking at the change in the student enrollment count for the free and reduced price meals under current law versus what the governor has proposed in the budget. So if we look at this first set of columns here, the enrollment count would decrease by about 41,000 or 9.4%. Again, with decreases in many of the jurisdictions, with particular impacts in Baltimore City, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. There were some changes in how the community eligibility provision schools students were counted in that, which led to this decline under state law. And so the governor has proposed a method of counting which aligns with how things were counted in the previous year, which brings the overall reduction down to about 7,500. So that's an additional about 33,600 students that would be counted under the formula as the governor has proposed. It benefits many jurisdictions, though not all. The three largest impacts are Baltimore City, Montgomery County, and Queen Anne's County. The last slide I have just shows kind of how the proposed reduction in retirement payments is spread by jurisdiction. Again, this doesn't impact the actual benefits, just who is paying for certain costs. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Question in the chat.
I know there was a question in the chat about. So
Go ahead, Betty.
Question is, where does the revenue from the lottery go?
The lottery revenue, I think is what you were saying. It goes to a number of different places. I don't have the full distribution off the top of my head, though there is a page in the full fiscal briefing document that I mentioned that has that information. If it's okay, I can send a link with that document out that could be shared that would provide the full information.
Thank you. Other questions? Virginia?
You mentioned costs that are being passed on to the counties again. And the pension costs, I believe, is one of them. I understand the declining enrollment and how that affects what is given to each county. But once again, they're passing the costs of retirement on to the counties. Our concern is that the less money the counties have to spend because of these increased costs, it creates problems within the county budgets. We, as a group, are particularly concerned about healthcare, since that is at the discretion of each of the local subdivisions. Could you comment?
That is a decision that the legislature will have to make as they consider the governor's budget. Obviously, if there are more costs being passed along, that would have some impact. This is a proposal that is in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act that the General Assembly will vote on later on as they vote on the budget. But yes, there are in this budget some additional costs being passed to the jurisdiction as it's been proposed.
There is another question in the chat about how will the change in how our farm kids impact our low-income families?
The change in the count is related to how it is counted for the state aid purposes. It doesn't change how the students are actually receiving free or reduced price meals. It does indicate there are fewer potentially fewer people receiving free and reduced priced meals. But the particular one of the drivers of this of the declining enrollment as it relates to the state aid enrollment counts has to do with the community eligibility provision schools. In those schools, all students are receiving free and reduced price meals. So this is just how those numbers are being counted for aid purposes. But under the governor's proposal, the counts are returning or would be higher than they would have otherwise been. And so the school systems would receive more funding than is required under state law.
And another question in the chat room is, what is the proposed vote date for the budget?
I don't have an exact date. That is at the discretion of the committees. I will say that there are budget hearings, so each agency is heard in each the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee or Appropriations Committee, or subcommittees of those committees. Those hearings are scheduled through the beginning of March, so I would not anticipate it being before that time, but the actual vote date, I would have to defer to the committees. They would post that on the hearing schedule when that is set.
Okay, I don't see any more hands or any more questions in the chat box. Oh, Harold? Harold?
Is
There you
there
go.
an estimate of how much the state has been defunded or whatever you want to say by the feds for the like 1 year? How much money we've lost of federal funds?
So this is a little bit of a kind of moving target, and it depends exactly on what's being counted on there. I don't have the specifics. We are reviewing that, and as we prepare each budget analysis, those budget hearings start in a couple days. There have been a number of announcements about grants that have been canceled. However, some of those are ultimately restored through later decisions or court action. One of the kind of most significant impacts is changes that were passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We do, in the full document that I'll share later, provide some estimates about what we think the impact of that will be on particular state costs. But in terms of the total dollars, I don't have a specific. We do have a document on the DLS website that has, or the General Assembly website, that has information that we had of a particular date, and I will share that link along with the full fiscal briefing document, which can then be passed along.
Thank you.
Okay. Last call for questions for Tanya. All right, Tanya, that's a lot of information. If there are those who want to go online and look at the whole document, feel free. But for right now, I appreciate Virginia's appreciating too. I appreciate the information, and it certainly gives us something to think about and something to watch over. So I appreciate your being here, Tanya. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. We have a little bit of time to before our next presenter, who is Miss Virginia. I know that somebody wrote that Tilly is on now. The screen, there are too many people on now for us to see everybody. Oh, there she is. Tilly, you want to say good morning to everybody real quick?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Thanks for being here. I think I also saw our president-elect, Alice Mitchell. Alice, are you there?
I'm here in the snow in Dorchester, yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Anybody else I missed? I know we have Debbie Chance here. She's one of our area directors. I don't know if there are any other area directors since I can't see everybody.
Christina is here also.
Christina,
Mhm.
thank you for waving, Christina. All right. I guess we'll go ahead with Miss Virginia, the person who does so much of our legislative watch and work. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about our legislative priorities. Virginia?
Okay, thank you. This, hopefully you all have your copies of our priorities. A very beautiful brochure this year. It's lovely. But if we look at it from the standpoint of our priorities, number one is always pension protection. And that is, we'll hear later on today how that is going from the state retirement and pension update. But we have steadily made progress towards our goal of being fully funded, which 80% is considered to be fully funded. The only concern in this session that I see about the pension is what we just talked about, that is passing the cost of the pensions, some of the costs of the pensions, onto the counties. So we'll keep an eye on the budget and legislation as regards that particular item. In the under healthcare, over the last few years, through the mighty labor of Vinnie DeMarco, a prescription drug affordability board has been created in Maryland, the first one, and one of only, I think, 2 or 3 currently existing. And it has progressed to the point where there are several drugs that are being, that have been marked for limiting the cost of these drugs. And I think all 4 of them have to do with diabetes medication, like Farxiga and Jardiance and that sort of thing. And they can, as the approval works through, then it will become easier to add to that list. Since this is a very new concept, it's taken a while to actually implement. Ms. Zimmerman just talked about the blueprint for Maryland, and a couple of comments I want to make is that, one, they are seeing measurable results that are positive from the blueprint. The legislature and the governor continue to support the blueprint with funding, and not, it's so tempting to take that large cost and reduce it, but they're massaging it here and there and saving costs wherever they can. I do want to remind everybody that this is education money, and education is a primary responsibility of the state. It's one of the main responsibilities of the state. So it's not like this is a gift to education. It's very, very important, as we all know. We have safety and education, technology. Under the civic participation, one of the things we're watching is elections. We want to make sure that access to voting is the best that can be. And this sometimes involves things like accessibility for disabled. And as one of the members of our committee, Karen has she's our expert on elections, and there are a lot of rules about making voting accessible. There is a proposal that hasn't actually come in the form of a bill yet to make it possible to do curbside voting for people who find it very difficult to actually get out of the car. So we'll see how that works. There are also already a couple bills in to as we see it, to restrict voting by putting restrictions on it, like proof of citizenship at the time that you vote. And proof of citizenship is done when you register to vote. And when you register to vote, you swear that what you say is true, that you are a citizen. And if it turns out that that's not true, then there are legal punishments for that. But the fact is that in the state of Maryland, there has been nominal issues when it comes to that. So small that it's not even statistically important. One of the important things going on this year has to do with our priority of the quality of life, which says we support services and communities that help seniors age in place and remain healthy, active, financially secure, and independent. One of the administration bills and a departmental bill from the Department of Aging would establish the Longevity Ready Maryland Act. This comes from a plan developed by the Department of Aging called Longevity Ready Maryland Plan, which has had a lot of stakeholders putting with their input, including us, into this plan. It's the most organized plan I've seen come from the Department of Aging. It establishes what their role is, how they can go about it. It's not a question of additional costs. It's a question of organization and knowing how it operates. And as I've served on the oversight committee for nursing homes and long-term care for 20 years, and this is the most important document I've seen come out of that group. Quite often, we don't quite know what department is responsible for what when it comes to aging. And the fact is that the fastest growing part of our population in Maryland are the people who are 65 and older. I think they're talking about the boomers. That's us. Once again, we hit the highlights. The long-term care is one of our priorities, and we've been putting something in year after year to try to get a better tax credit for that. Like anything else that costs money this year, I do not expect it to happen. We will, of course, if there's a bill presented, we will support it. But as you just learned, we're dealing with a shortfall in the budget, and they're doing all their magic tricks to make that disappear. It is an election year, and during election years, the legislature does not like to increase any costs to citizens. But they have the budget shortfall. A lot of it does have to do with as somebody questioned, the impact of the federal decisions on the federal level. Maryland lost more federal jobs than any state in the union, over 25,000. And that's federal employees. We have to add to that contractors, federal contractors. And it's had a significant impact on the state revenues. But interestingly, listening to the governor and the legislative leaders, they're not wasting their time whining about that. They're trying to move ahead with things that hopefully will put Maryland in a position where they are not so dependent on federal jobs. For many, many years, that has been our consistent issue. We've been able to stay protected from even recessions and things because so many of the jobs in Maryland were federal. But we have to take the approach that we cannot continue to be so dependent on that source of employment. So they're working on a lot of other things, many of which were on the list that Ms. Zimmerman just shared with us. That is an overview of the priorities, and I've talked to this group before about how we go about making decisions. The committee, which is a diverse and excellent committee, legislative committee. We discuss the bills as they come up, as they're presented. We either support the bill, oppose it with letters and perhaps testimony, or we take no position. So far, it's the list of bills that we believe are important to our organization. It's not very long. That can change after the snow melts. They didn't meet Monday. That's one of the rare, rare times when the session has actually been canceled. But they're back to work, of course, and we will keep track of what's going on with them. If you have any questions,
I don't see any in the chat box yet.
come on, Harold. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Virginia. And we'll continue to send out updates after the committee meets every 2 weeks or whatever, and keep everybody informed on the things that are important, the things that we're following, and the changes that may occur, good, bad, or ugly.
I would
I
like
want to
to
go back to, go ahead.
I would like to add that we work very closely with AARP since so many of our concerns align. And that is why we've included on the agenda representative, the new director of legislation. That's not her exact title, Sarah Westrick. So, but we do meet with once a week to discuss issues that we share. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, I'm looking at notes sent to me. I know there are a couple of presenters on now, so we're not going to take a lot of time, but I want to make sure I include two other people in introductions for those of you that don't know them. On this call are Carla Dulles, who is a past president of MRSPA, MRSPA, and also Sharon Doyle, who is our MRSPA secretary. So I'm not sure if y'all can see them, but they're there, and I'm appreciative of the fact that they've joined us as well. Sarah Westrick, is she on the call yet? Do we know?
Yes, Sarah's
I
here.
am.
Are you ready, Sarah? Because we're running early,
I'm
which is not a
ready.
bad thing.
I'm
All
ready.
right.
Is
Well,
it
let
okay
me,
to share a slide? I have one slide.
yeah, but can you give me a minute to let everybody know a little bit more about you, please?
Absolutely.
All right. Sarah was appointed as our AARP's new advocacy director. She will lead our AARP Maryland's legislative strategy, working closely with volunteers, legislators, and community partners to champion the issues that matter most to older adults, from caregiving and healthcare to financial security and livable communities. She brings over 2 decades of experience in public policy, strategic communications, and civic engagement. She's built a distinguished career influencing policy at the federal, state, and local levels, focusing on public health, humanitarian affairs, aging populations, and community resilience. Her leadership roles have spanned USAID's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and the Anne Arundel County Commission for Women, where she served as the chair. Hank Greenberg said of her, he's the state AARP director, Sarah's deep commitment to public service and her ability to build inclusive cross-sector coalitions make her an ideal leader for our advocacy efforts. Her strategic vision and passion for empowering communities will help us advance policies that support older Marylanders and their families. Sarah has a master's degree in international political economy from, I don't speak Spanish or whatever this is, Universidad del Belgrano in Argentina, and a bachelor's degree in international relations and modern languages from Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida. She's fluent in Spanish and conversational in French, Portuguese, and Italian, and she was also the Jeopardy champion from season 23. Sarah, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm just going to see if I can share a single slide here. Did that share? Let me see. There we go. Okay. All right. I think we're there. All right. So thank you very much for inviting me to your legislative briefing. And I was thrilled to hear Virginia give her readout. Virginia is a vital liaison between our groups and a member of our advocacy team. And a couple of the things that she mentioned as priorities for you, your group are top priorities for us as well. So there's definitely a lot of overlap. As was discussed, I'm new in my role. I'm in my 5th month here as advocacy director for AARP Maryland, and getting up to speed on all of the coalitions that we're a part of and all of the different subject areas where we're active in our advocacy. This is a photo that I took, or I didn't take the photo, but it was taken of our group at a luncheon we had in November. So you can see it's quite a big group of volunteers, very diverse, very vital, lots of fun. And the issues that we work on are quite serious and really do affect the lives of those 50 plus and their families and their everyday. But we try to also have fun and build social connections among our volunteers because that's just so important for teamwork, but also quality of life and enjoying what we do. Here you'll see some of the big categories where I'm focused this session. I am tracking hundreds of bills and submitting testimony every day on a number of bills, but these are some of the big buckets, some of the big priority buckets. First off, within AARP writ large, and especially in Maryland, the role of family caregivers is so important. We have over 1.1 million family caregivers in our state, and it's about a quarter of the population that is caring for a loved one in some way. And many of our family caregivers are giving not only their time, but their treasure, their own financial resilience, and their own financial future is sometimes at stake due to the amount of investment they have to take or put into caregiving. So anything that we can do that provides resources and support to our family caregivers is something that quickly goes to the top of our priority list. We're looking at a bill that has yet to be introduced, but it will be a feasibility study to look at the issue of direct stipends to family caregivers. If you've been following this work, you know that there have been different attempts to do a tax credit. That tax credit program then became a grant program. That grant program was never funded. In this, bleak financial climate, it's also unlikely that this feasibility study will be funded. But we keep pushing, and we're supporting this bill in particular because it is a very innovative and direct idea and a concept that has not been talked about as frequently as some of the other ideas. So we're trying to see what we can do in this realm to generate support for continuing to provide financial relief for family caregivers. Next, I want to draw your attention to just how important long-term care reform is to AARP Maryland. Virginia mentioned her role in the Oversight Committee for the Quality of Care in Nursing Homes and Assisted Livings. I've just recently been appointed to that committee as well. And I've just put together a 2 to 3 year plan to think about holistically how we can improve our long-term care system in the state. We want to focus on improving quality and oversight. We want to see more resources invested directly back into facilities. And the bill I'll mention in that respect is the Nursing Home Staffing Crisis Act. Out of a different bill last session, there was a report created that showed that 53% of revenue is reinvested in the facilities into direct care and staffing. And this bill aims to raise that threshold to 75%. We really see that there needs to be a higher reinvestment level in order to maintain the quality and the staffing levels that are so needed in um, these facilities. There are a number of other initiatives that we are following as well in the long-term care space. We're hoping to help establish an advisory stakeholder council to advise the Office of Healthcare Quality. Some have mentioned that this might be redundant to the Oversight Committee, but it's really not. It has a much broader mission and mandate and a much different composition of stakeholders than the one that's on the Oversight Committee that's focused strictly on nursing homes. This would be far broader in terms of supporting all of OHCQ's work across the healthcare system. We're also supporting some bills that we expect. One has been introduced already to support the long-term care ombudsman. This is an independent office that does not receive its funding through the Department of Aging's regular budget. And this bill has proposed an innovative way to stabilize the financing for its work. Excuse me. I heard earlier about the mention of how vulnerable Maryland has been to some of the decisions made at the federal level. And that was certainly the case with our Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman, who had its funding withheld from it for a number of months earlier in the year, or excuse me, last year. So we're supporting that bill to see how we can strengthen its oversight and look at prevention of problems, right? The ombudsman works in the preventative space, and we feel that that's extremely important. I'm sure a few times already you've mentioned the affordability crisis in our state, how expensive things have become, and nowhere is that more clear than in the utility space. There are so many problems and very few solutions. But that to say that when it comes to regulation and deregulation and all of these things, we're keeping a very close eye on what AARP as the voice of consumers can do to fight for fair rates, to fight for affordability and reliability. Some of the bills that have been introduced are really working on the margins of getting to the heart of the issue. But just know that it's a space where we're working closely. We have an expert utility volunteer who's well regarded and tracks this very closely for us to see where and how we might influence the conversation, which of course is a regional conversation due to Maryland's reliance on imported energy and our place within the larger PJM grid. The next bucket of area I wanted to mention is that about fraud prevention and protection and consumer protection writ large. This is something that AARP is well known for nationally, and in Maryland, we're very strong in this space. We really want to help protect older adults from scams, from becoming fraud victims. We have a number of bills that we're looking at in terms of wire transfer fraud, looking at helping fraud victims not have to bear the burden of paying taxes on retirement distributions that then were stolen from them. That's in our opinion, being victimized twice. And then very excitedly, I'm expecting to be introduced what's known as a report and hold bill. This is a type of bill in the financial industry where if a bank feels that there's a suspicious transaction taking place, that they'll hold it. They'll report that and they'll hold that for a number of hours until it can be determined whether that is a legitimate financial transaction or not. This has been a priority for AARP in a number of states, successfully in Florida, and most recently working in Pennsylvania last year. They've not passed their bill there in Pennsylvania, but we've been learning quite a bit from their experience. And I'm anticipating that this bill will be introduced and we will mobilize a lot of support for its passage. Next, I want to mention that AARP Maryland is part of the Caring Across Maryland Coalition. and they have a slate of 5 bills. They call it the Care Agenda, and one of them is focused on brain health, promoting education and awareness of Alzheimer's and related dementias. It proposes the formation of a clinical toolkit and also elevating the public health response within our Department of Health. We're working under the leadership of the Alzheimer's Association in this space, and as I mentioned, in conjunction with our fellow advocates in the Caring Across Maryland coalition. But if you're not aware, Maryland has one of the highest incidents of Alzheimer's in the nation. And in particular, Baltimore City and PG County are number 2 and number 5 of the municipalities most affected in the nation. So we feel that this needs to be a priority for our Maryland delegation, for our Maryland legislators to look at what can be done both in the prevention space, but also in the caregiver education and support space. And then lastly, one of our top priorities, I'll be testifying tomorrow at the Senate hearing, and Virginia talked about it at length, but I just want to reemphasize how important the Longevity Ready Maryland Act is to AARP Maryland. We were among the many stakeholders advised, and really AARP has a methodology and a conceptualization of age-friendly planning, and you may be familiar with the designation of age-friendly states and communities. Many of our local jurisdictions have attained that status. Montgomery County, Hyattsville, and a number of others. And this would be, we believe, our way for Maryland as a state to ascend into that age-friendly network of states. Not many states have reached that level, and all of the work has been done to form this plan. So we're hopeful that the one leads to the other, and that we're also hopeful that this Longevity Ready Maryland Plan Act will help ensure the implementation of all those good ideas and be the foundation or the basis for a number of follow-on bills that could be introduced in future sessions to help really build together that age-friendly Maryland that we all want and we'll all benefit from. And when we're working in the space, we always want to emphasize to everyone that making something age-friendly means it works for all ages, and that benefits us all. It's really something that is just good practice in general. So I think I'll pause there. I hope I didn't go too quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Oops, that's a different
There
slide.
is a question in the
Yeah.
chat room. It says, will the cost of long-term care insurance ever become a priority issue for AARP?
Virginia and I were just trading emails about this. I can't give you an answer definitively in this moment. It's something I myself am still learning about. If you're familiar with AARP, policy begins at the top. It's set by a board of directors, and I myself, as I mentioned, I've been getting up to speed on a lot of things, but in some of these nuanced questions, I don't yet have the answers. So I will look into that and see what people are thinking in that space.
That would be great. Thanks. Are there other questions? I'm guessing not. I don't see any more in the chat room. And I don't see any hands up unless there's somebody on a different screen that I can't see. If there is, please speak up.
Don't see any hands.
Okay, that's a good thing, I guess. You've answered all the questions, Sarah.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me, and I wish you a great rest of your briefing today. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your time with us. All right, next we have a video bringing greetings from Congressman Johnny Olszewski. Many of you, especially those of you in Baltimore County, may know him. He is a former teacher and now represents one of our congressional districts. So whoever's got that, is that Heidi or is that Wanda?
It's Heidi.
Okay.
Is there any sound?
There's no sound yet. And it's pretty herky jerky.
That
Yeah.
painting's making me hungry.
Can we
Oh.
restart this?
Probably because my sound was off. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. Working on it now.
That's okay. Everybody's thinking about crabs now.
Congressman Johnny. Can you hear it now?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, it's all the way up, so I'm not sure what else I can do. So
Good.
you might
Everybody
all have to turn up
turn
your
up,
volume.
yeah, turn up your own volume, everybody.
Okay, here we go.
Hey everyone, Congressman Johnny O here, and I'm thrilled to join so many retired teachers from across Maryland as you prepare for your legislative workshop. I wish I could be with you in person, but the truth is I'm exactly where I need to be, here in Washington, fighting for our shared values. In Congress, we face an ever-growing list of challenges, but for me, education has always been personal. It's always been where my heart is. Many of you know that I began my career as a public school teacher in Baltimore County. And I chose that path because I wanted other children to have the same opportunities that changed my own life. Growing up in the shadow of a declining steel mill and becoming the first in my family to graduate from college. I saw firsthand that schools are more than buildings. They're places of discovery and possibility. They're safe havens. They are promises. Promises that potential will be recognized and nurtured. That's why as Baltimore County Executive, I made record investments in school infrastructure and teacher salaries. We cannot expect excellence from our educators unless we are willing to support them. Now in Congress, education remains a central focus of my work. In my first year, I will work with anyone, Democrat or Republican, willing to advance common sense education policies and to stand up against misguided proposals that put our schools and educators at risk. But I also know that your priorities extend beyond education alone. As retired educators and as seniors, I want you to know that I'm also fighting for kitchen table issues that matter the most. Protecting Social Security, securing affordable health care, lowering the cost of groceries, gas, and electricity. Our seniors deserve to age in place and to remain healthy, active, financially secure, and independent. Your advocacy matters so much. I know it isn't easy, but your efforts make a real difference for Maryland's retired educators and for generations to come. So please know this. You have a strong ally in me. I look forward to continuing our work alongside you to uphold our commitment to educators, retirees, and seniors. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful workshop.
Well, that was very nice. I know that he has always been because he's an educator, a strong supporter of education. So those of you in District 2, you might want to talk to him about your concerns about the cost being shifted back for the pension to the counties and see if he remembers what it might be like to worry about whether or not you're going to have health care because of things like that. He's very easy to talk to. Okay, we are now going to move to, I think we have Director Derek Johnson on from the Maryland State Retirement Agency. Do we have Derek on?
Yes, good morning.
Oh, good morning. All right, let me give everybody a little bit of your background, Derek, if you don't mind. Mr. Johnson began his career with the Maryland State Retirement Agency in 2007 as a specialist in the Member Services Unit, where he provided counseling and led seminars for active, vested, and retired members of the system. He left the agency in 2013 to serve as a human resources business partner at Maryland's largest workers' compensation insurer, returning in 2023 as program manager in member services. He was subsequently promoted to Deputy Director of Member Services and later to Deputy Retirement Administrator. In that role, he worked closely with the Retirement Administrator and fellow deputy to oversee the departments responsible for administering. In December 2024, Mr. Johnson was promoted to Deputy Executive Director. He holds a bachelor's degree from Towson University. So welcome, Mr. Derek Johnson. We appreciate you being with us, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Betty. I'll be sharing with you all a static image while I discuss the system's health. And I guess with that, can everyone see my screen, I hope? I'll go ahead and get started. But once again, it is an honor to be joining you, the members and career educators of the Maryland Retired School Personnel Association. As Betty stated, I am Derek Johnson. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the Maryland State Retirement Agency. Our acting executive director, John Martin, is unable to join us this morning, but he does send his warm regards. But joining me today as well is Ann Gothrop, the Director of Legislative Affairs of the Maryland State Retirement Agency, to discuss our agency's involvement with the General Assembly this year, as well as help address any questions that may follow our presentation. And before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge one of your representatives of MRSPA, who sits on our board, Trustee Ayanna English Brown. She is very much a welcome voice and a great representative on our board. So know that your interests are well represented. And not necessarily representative of what I have on the slide here, but I'd like to begin by highlighting some of the great work accomplished by our agency this year, beginning with our agency's investments performance. The system generated a return of 9.83% net of fees for the fiscal year ending in June, this past June 30th, 2025, and that bested the actuarial assumed rate of return of 6.8%. So very strong performance there. And with that, the fund's performance increased the system's assets to $73.6 billion, which is an increase of $5.4 billion over the previous fiscal year and keeps us on track to meet our funding goals into the future. So somewhat, I'm sorry, no, misspoke. It's not represented on this slide, but just to give you a sense of the scale of our operations, our membership exceeds 430,000 persons, and that does include our active as well as inactive members, retirees, and payees. Our total membership between retirees and active members of the Teachers Pension Retirement System account for nearly 203,000 of that number. So close to half are persons like yourselves, retired from the pension or teachers retirement system. And from those that began in the original retirement system, and that's for those that I guess joined prior to 1980, there are still 71 members that are still actively employed in the system. So consider this. As it stands, it's possible that of those 71 remaining members in the old retirement system, someone who began employment back in December of 1979 has remarkably achieved 46 years of service. So quite the feat. And then for comparison, which does kind of draw us to this slide here, the average participant of the system is closer to 23 years of service. See there on the slide, it represents an average of 22.8, which in itself would still be a remarkable career span. So whether you've achieved 40 years of service or if you've just begun your career in public education, know that our agency staff works diligently behind the scenes to administer the benefit payments of the system. Their work accounts for $5 billion paid out in annual allowances, as represented here on the slide in fiscal year 2025. And $3 billion of that are recipients such as yourself that are retirees from the teachers, pension, and retirement systems. You'll see that on the scale or the columns on the right-hand side. The bottom two, that number totals close to that $3 billion I had mentioned. So consider that the combined product of our agency and your career's work, it does have a wide impact on many people, including a great economic value to the state of Maryland. Nearly $4 billion that is paid in annual pensions are to residents of Maryland. So we're seeing our dollars still stay within the state. And again, that is to the economic health for all Marylanders. So as our agency remains committed to providing benefits to members and retirees while protecting and growing the assets which you have entrusted to us, your earnest investment in the state of Maryland throughout your careers and investments in your communities is the touchstone for all that we do every day. So thank you. That concludes my portion of the presentation. And Anne, I believe you are present with us. And there.
I am. I was having difficulty getting to my microphone. I
No
apologize
problem.
for that.
No, thank you. So Ann Gothrop, she does tremendous work for our agency with the legislator and certainly can speak to what we are doing this present year. So Ann, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thanks, Derek. And thank you all for having me. Wanda, I apologize. I got caught up in the start of session and did not get a bio to you. Just to give you all a little bit of history of who I am. I started in this area, oh my gosh, back in the 90s as the lawyer for one of the lawyers for the Baltimore City retirement systems. I ended up in 2000 moving to another job in Annapolis with the Department of Legislative Services, where I served as the committee counsel for the House Pension Subcommittee for 10 years. And after that, in 2011, I moved up to my current position, where I have served as the Director of Legislative Affairs for the State Retirement Agency in Annapolis, addressing legislation having to do anything with pensions. I will tell you this, I had a legislator once when I asked, when I was explaining about a vacation I went on, he said, I didn't think you went on vacations. I assumed when you were not in Annapolis, you were just home thinking about pensions. So it is a huge part of my life, and I love it. And I'm happy to be here to talk to you about the 2026 legislative session. At this point, we are off to a slow start. I checked right before I came on. There are only 7 bills so far that have been introduced that are pension bills, none that are specific to the teachers' pension system retirees. There are some for correctional officers. There are some clarification bills that have come in. There is our perennial bill that comes in every year having to do with forfeiture of pension benefits. That bill doesn't seem to move at all. I'm sorry, I should have backed up before I started talking about legislation. I wanted to give a shout out to our 2 subcommittee chairs on the House and the Senate side. We have a brand new subcommittee chair this year on the Senate side, Senator Karen Lewis Young. She's been on the pension subcommittee for a number of years, and she is wonderful to work with. She is on top of this, and she understands the issues very well. On the House side, you have Delegate Kathy Forbes returning for her 4th session. She is phenomenal. She also, she really understands these issues, and she is looking out for our members and our retirees whenever legislation comes before her subcommittee, as I'm sure Senator Lewis Young will be. So I want to assure you, you all have 2 really good subcommittee chairs dealing with pensions on both the House and the Senate side. The one bill I really wanted to talk to you about today that has not been introduced yet, but we have reached out. This is going to be coming from the agency, and it is going to directly impact every one of you. We've reached out to the subcommittee chairs, and they've agreed to introduce this. Last October, well, let me start by saying it has to do with your COLAs. I know a lot of you are expecting to hear from us sometime in the next couple weeks what the COLA is going to be on July 1st. However, the way we calculate our COLA, and where are my math teachers on here? Because this will resonate with you. One of the components we need to calculate our annual COLA is we have to take the average every year of the CPI numbers for each month that are released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There was no data last year in 2025 for October. So if we were just to put a 0 in for October and take that average, your COLA would be significantly lower. Additionally, a 0 is a value, and it's not as if there was no CPI in October. It's just that it was not reported. So that wouldn't work for the formula. We need to figure out what is the best way to calculate the average for 2025 in order to provide you with the best, as close to a COLA as we think you would have gotten if a number had been reported. We have been working closely with our actuary on this, and they gave us a couple options. We looked at each option and we tested each option over the last several years to see which option would come closest to what the actual COLA would be. We've come up with a solution that we think gets us within a couple hundredths of what the actual COLA for the past several years would be. So we think this is going to get us the closest to what we would have reported had we had an October number for 2025. This is going to be emergency legislation because we all know you're counting on this to get this number for your planning for July as soon as you can. We've reached out, we've explained to our subcommittee chairs, I've reached out to the presiding officers, and I've reached out to the governor's office to all let them know this has to be emergency. Once the bill is drafted and introduced, we needed to move as quickly as possible. What we need from you all, what would be great, I'm certainly not suggesting you all come down and testify and flood the committee room, but certainly just a call to your once the bill is introduced, saying you fully support this bill. We're also going to be reaching out to retired AFSCME people, retired SLEOLA, retirees, to the extent that you all can reach out and just say, please pass this bill, please. And we really would like it to pass clean without any amendments, nothing to hold it up. Everyone I've spoken to in Annapolis is very understanding of this bill and understands the importance of it and seems committed to moving it as quickly as we can. So that's my big news for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that bill, about anything else that's happening in Annapolis. And with that, I will take your questions, but please be nice. Oh, can I just ask real quick? Is Teresa Lotke on the call? Is she still with all of you? Because she was on our board for years, and boy, I miss her. And if anyone is talking to her, please tell her I said hello.
She is not with us today, Anne, and she is still a member of our organization, but we don't hear from her as much since she is not on the board of trustees anymore. But if we talk to her, definitely, if I see her or whatever, I definitely will let her know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if anybody has a question, now's the time.
Virginia has a hand up, Betty.
Okay, Virginia, and then we have one in the chat room. Virginia, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, Anne, I want to say we're always nice. We're very nice.
Oh, I know that's true. Do you know, but when I graduated from college, I was intending to be a high school math teacher. So I love teachers. My dad was a professor. I'm all with you. So
we knew that. Could you give me, I deal in for the information that year after year is what percentage have we achieved towards our goal of being fully funded?
I believe right now, at the end of this year, at the end of June 30th, 2025. So for fiscal 25, I believe we are at 73.6% funded.
Not much difference than last year then.
We're up. I believe it's up. I believe it is up, but we're not up like this. We're up. Yeah. But I will confirm that. Derek, do you have that number?
Yes, it is an increase. So previously we were closer to 73%, and it has risen to that rounding up 74% ending out this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Great.
Oh, and
All right, from the
also
chat.
news within the agency. We have a new CIO who just started last week. Diane and Derek, do you have her last name?
Sandoval, Diane Sandoval.
Sandoval. And she just started, and we're very excited to have her here. So, we will be reporting to all of you. You'll be seeing her results with the fund and how she's doing as we move forward.
Great. So from the chat room, we have two questions. One, can we get specific language to send out to local people regarding contacting our leaders about this emergency bill? And number two, do we have a bill number yet?
No. Okay. First off, yes, we could. We are working on general language that we are planning to share with our retirees or anyone who calls into the agency. So I can certainly, once that's prepared, I can get a copy of that to Wanda, and she can distribute that to all of you. It gives you a background of what the problem is, all right, and where we're headed. We do not have a bill number yet because we're still working on drafting the bill. It's not an easy bill to draft. It's, again, to my math teachers out there, this is creating a word problem. The bill is going to be a word problem. So we have to take the equation that we're going to use and turn it into a sentence.
Know about word problems.
To follow up on that, and will this be just for this year? Will this be a one-time, or will this impact future COLA calculations as well?
It will affect next year's COLA calculation too. So this is why we need to nail this number down now, because we're going to need it for this year's calculation. And then, so every year average CPI average that we need to calculate your COLA, we use it for 2 years. We use it in the current year, and then we use it in the next year following. But then after that, that number will roll off of the calculations.
Are there other questions?
And I just have one follow-up, Betty, if you don't mind. So then the remainder of the calculation process for the COLA will be the same. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Now I will tell you this. I shouldn't even say this, but if there are shutdowns in the future, this is the other reason why this is important. If there are shutdowns in the future where we end up not getting a report for us, data reported for a certain month, we will have this formula in place and we'll be able to use it in the future. But, this is the first time this has ever happened. So hopefully it is the last time this happens.
There are no guarantees.
Nope. But we want to be ready because of that.
All right. Yes. And I'm sure everybody here will wait with bated breath to make sure we are. Thank you
I would
so
tell
much
everyone
for the information.
To look for the bill. You will probably see the bill, not this, you won't see it this week, and you will see it after the 5th. All right, so the week after the 5th. So that would be almost like a week and a half from now. That's when you should expect to see it introduced.
Okay, mark your calendars.
All right, so Virginia will be on that for the legislative committee, most definitely, and I'll look forward to receiving whatever I can from you as well. That we'll be happy to certainly review and work on that. On a unrelated note, but certainly pension related, pension system related. Do you all have an estimation or best guess of how long you are going to keep the paper newsletter and 1099s and so forth coming out to folks where previously we had gotten word that all of that was going to become electronic? And then the latest retiree news and notes said that, we've walked back from that for 2026. Do you know if that will continue beyond 2026, or is there any word on that at this point?
So I'm going to turn that to Derek, but I want to just, and I'm sure Derek will also, I want to apologize for the confusion about it being electronic and then not being electronic. I'm sorry for that. And I think Derek's team has really addressed this. And Derek, I will turn to you.
Yes, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Wanda, for the question. So, for the foreseeable future, we will continue printing all of those items. The 1099-R, I believe, is by statute, so there will be no plans to ever change that, for the foreseeable future. But with respect to the retiree news and notes, as well as the advice slip, as we refer to it as, that statement that goes out twice a year, you should expect that in 2026 and beyond. It certainly will be communicative if there are any changes, but we have no plans to reverse course.
Wonderful.
That is great news. You would not believe how many folks we heard from about with concerns about that, and we are certainly appreciative, especially for our folks that are not computer literates or who do not own computers or cell phones or all of those things. The ones that may or may not have family members assisting them with having access to those things electronically. So that is a great relief to us and to many of our members.
Indeed. Thank you so much for sharing your information and for giving up your time and to be with us today. We really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Do you mind if I stay on and listen?
No.
Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's
Thank
welcome.
you.
It is. All right, we're going to move on now to our own legislative committee chair, Mr. Tom Slater, who will talk a little bit about our strategic plan, legislative focus, and our member contacts. Tom?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody attending. Looks like we have a good turnout. And the association has been involved in working on a strategic plan. And as you might imagine, one of the hallmarks of that new strategic plan involves the legislative committee. And I think it highlights the importance of the work we do as the legislative committee. So the three things that I want to ask for help with. One is that we feel it's really important that members get involved, not just with our association, but with the community, with the governmental agencies in the state and in their localities, and with people who are in elective office. So, and we encourage you to get involved in political activities. And it doesn't make a difference what your political affiliation is. We would like you to get involved in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Green Party, whatever other parties might be there, because any involvement that we have with our members it works to our advantage. And any contacts that we make with people who are in a position to make decisions that affect the goals that we have is important. And we're also trying to develop a matrix, so to speak, of people who have contacts with either their federal legislators, the state government, the executive branch of the government, or the Maryland General Assembly, particularly the Maryland General Assembly. Because when Virginia's down there testifying before bills, before committees, and lobbying on our behalf, she could use some help. And if it comes up that there's a particular legislator that is on the fence about some issue that's important to us, and we know that one of our members is the next door neighbor of this legislator or best friend, or this legislator is godfather or godmother to their children, or related, or they have some kind of relationship, then Virginia can call on that person to have a personal contact. When people are in elective office and they get a contact from somebody they don't know, it's important, and they respond as they should. But when they get a contact from somebody that they know, it's even more important because they listen to people that they know and people they respect. So we're trying to get our members to send into Mondorf, Virginia, anybody you have a first name basis with that is in the Congress of the United States, that it's in the Maryland General Assembly, or even locally, because occasionally some issues may come up that we want to have some contact with our local legislators or county executives. And to my knowledge, and it may have, I don't know if it's changed, but only 2 people have done this so far, have given that list to Wanda. And I'm one of them, but hopefully there'll be some others. And so that we can have this list that when it comes time to make that crucial, important contact, we know the right person has to do it. And thirdly, we want to show to our members what we're doing in terms of our work, in terms of lobbying. And one way to show that is by pictures. And we're trying to get, if you're in a situation where you're at a reception, you're at a meeting, and there's a local delegate there, or there's a state senator or congressman, county executive, try to get your picture taken and then send it to Wanda. So far, I think only Virginia and I have had the privilege of having our pictures with important people in the newsletter, but we'd like to expand that and just show our members that we're out there as a committee, and as not all of you are on the committee, but that as an organization, that we're out there interacting with the people that are making decisions that will affect our lives. So that's 3 things that I'm asking you to do. Get involved. Let us know who you have personal contacts with, and get your picture taken and send it to us. And that'll help us achieve the kinds of goals that we're trying to achieve on your behalf. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, that's my message. Thank you.
Betty, I have
Thank
just
you, and it is important.
I have just a bit
Go
of
ahead.
follow up on that, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay. We are at MRSPA, we are working on an electronic form that we are hoping to be able to send out to all of our members that we have email addresses for, that would compile that data on who you know, on which federal, state, and local officials you know, how you know them, and any contact information that you might have for them that we don't already have in terms of their, we have their state email address, right, or their federal email address, but you might have their cell number. So we would ask you to, share that information on that form when it arrives. And certainly if, those of you that are here today, if you could let the other folks in your local know that this email is hopefully coming sometime in the next month. We've got the form pretty well good to go, but we need to test it some more, and we need to just work on some of the words in the questions to make sure that they elicit the answers that we are hoping to get, right? So it's in progress, but hopefully you'll see it soon to make it easier for you to submit that information to us and make it easier for us to compile it on the other side into a nice big gigantic Excel spreadsheet. So that is our goal in that. So again, if you know any, I mean, if it's a one person, right? If you know one state legislator, we want to know it, right? We don't need lists of 25 people that you don't know. But if you know one single person, one person on the school board, personally or professionally, if you've got a relationship with them, we want to know it, and that will be very helpful to us. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, because we didn't talk about this, Wanda, but also particularly at the federal level. Now, we don't do a whole lot of lobbying on the federal level, but who knows what might be the future. And there may be some things that come up federally that we want to talk to our congressmen or our senators. And unlike state legislators, which are fairly accessible, if you know them, you probably have their cell phone number. But congressmen and U.S. senators are a little harder to get to, and they have lots of staff. So if you know somebody that works for a congressman or works for a senator, put that down too, because that's the best way to get to them. Contact the staff person that you have contact with, and they'll follow through and go to their boss and do the ask. You know, so and so wants to meet with you to talk about this. Can we schedule 15 minutes one day or a phone call or something like that? So I'm not sure it will be included on the thing we send out, but if you have contact with a staff person particularly at the federal level, that could be helpful to us.
That's how we got our video from Johnny O today, because Tom knew his staff person. So that's how we were able to get that video that we showed to you earlier today. So those personal contacts are absolutely important. And thanks, Tom, for that.
Indeed, they are. But so is member involvement, because the more of us they hear from, the more important they know the issue is, and they like to hear your personal stories. With that, we have actually completed the agenda, with the exception of Wanda and her infamous door prizes and some closing remarks. So Wanda, are you door?
I got them right. Got them. I'm ready. And of course, you have to be present to win. Our first winner, if they are still on, is Shirley Hicks. I don't know if I saw Shirley today. Shirley?
Wanda, nope. I'm here. I'm on my phone.
Oh, you've got your phone number. Oh, well, very good. Excellent. Well, glad you're here, Shirley.
I'm looking at you. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. All right, our second winner. We got 3 winners today, 3 door prizes. All right, if they are still on, Brad Letterman from Baltimore County. I don't think I saw. I didn't see Brad earlier either, but he might be hiding behind something I didn't recognize too. Brad? All right, Brad is not here. All right, that takes us to Jan Frazier. Are you still on with us? I did see you earlier.
I am another winner, yes.
Yay, very good. Jan Frazier. And our third winner today is Carol Howard from Calvert County. Carol, are you still with us? Yeah. Yay! All right, so we got 3 winners. We've got Shirley, Janet, and Carol. Very good. Thank you, Betty.
You're welcome. Thank you, Wanda.
Now you'll get your prizes in the mail.
Thank you.